Welcome to the next episode of To Hell and Back, Ordinary People Living Transformed Lives. I'm Bobby Jackson.
And I'm Tracy Ramirez. And today we have Kaylin with us, who we are just delighted to have on and look very much forward to hearing her story and sharing it with all of you.
Welcome, Kaylin. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being on here. I'm Kaylin. Hi, everybody. I'm a mom, new mom.
Yay.
Yay.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So excited. He's adorable. And I'm a wife, and I'm also the oldest of seven children. So yeah, I have a big family. I also have two dogs. So I have three children. I really love to be outside, and something that I will talk about later, but I'm going to mention now is my favorite color is green.
Ah, that's always been
No,
my favorite color too.
It's a good color.
guys, I am not
It's
like
relaxing.
green is great. It's a money color, but I do not like green on me.
You know, funny you say that. I'm always like, I like yellow too, but I would not want a yellow car. So I know
Me
what
too.
you
Like
Yes.
there's
mean.
just some colors where like we love
Yes.
them, but I don't want that color on me. But yeah, totally
Oh,
get
yeah.
it.
That's how
So
I feel about pink. Like, I love pink, like sunset, but I do not, pink and I do not match.
Love it.
so Kaylin, we just you just if you want to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your story, and just why you agreed to come on this podcast and share everything.
Yeah, thank you. This is the first time I'm really um talking about my story other than my husband and my siblings and my counselor. And I do have to say, sometimes I ramble when I get nervous, and I'm very honored and proud of myself, but I am a little nervous, and I think that is healthy to admit.
It's
Um,
okay. It's
so
okay. We're all nervous sometimes,
yes,
right?
Yes.
yes, and it's good to admit the vulnerable moments. I think that's important. So um, as I mentioned, I am the oldest of seven children, and I come from a very abusive childhood. My father was the primary abuser. He and I have a very complicated relationship. Um, I also have a unique relationship with my mother as well. She we were all very scared of him growing up. And sometimes I had to be the one to kind of step in when things were happening and kind of protect her as well as my siblings. And it wasn't until I actually was a victim advocate at a domestic violence and sexual assault center for 2 years. So I kind of have a unique experience that I really understood what it is to be a parent going through abuse and having children and having your partner be the one to abuse yourself and your kids. So it was a unique experience for me to kind of see where my mom was coming from. She's a lot stronger now, and I'm very proud of her. But she and I
Yeah.
have talked. But sometimes I felt like I was kind of being the parent. Um, I don't really have a relationship with my dad at all, and I'm okay with that. I have a stepdad who's awesome, and he's fantastic. So very happy
Oh,
to have him.
great. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that kind of high level before we get into things today. And it really stood out to me that you were drawn to being an advocate for domestic abuse. Do you think it's because of your background that you were drawn to that then?
I definitely do. I think that I was lying to myself at first that I would definitely be able to come out of it unscathed. I'm so glad for the experience, and I really enjoy helping people, and I always try to look for new ways that I can help. And but there were times as an advocate that I would be kind of thrown back into my own experiences, and um which is just natural, but it's hard because I wanted to make sure I was supporting them the best I could, but also trying to kind of shoved down my own thoughts and
Yeah.
um, my own experiences, especially if there were sometimes overlapping journeys.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too, and I think this is maybe a good segue. Before the podcast began, we kind of talked about where we wanted to start. And you mentioned about kind of being thrown back into, your experience. And I too have experienced, things from my childhood and, realized that a lot of the things that I would have these strong emotional responses, I later learned were like triggers, because they
Mhm.
triggered that in me. So, if you feel comfortable sharing, would you share with our viewers today about your PTSD diagnosis, and what that meant for you, and then where you're at today?
Absolutely. Before I go into that, I do have a friend with me. So I'm all about this is it's
Ah,
a squishmallow. It's a Pokemon squishmallow. So he's
I
kind of my
love it.
my comfort.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I love
I
that.
love it.
so he's squishy, so he's offering a nice support.
I love it. You guys, while we're talking, I'm gonna go close my screen door because someone decided to mow the lawn next door.
Oh
So
no. Okay.
you guys keep going. Of course, that's gonna happen. You guys keep going. I'm gonna close the door.
Okay. Yes. So my PTSD, and actually it's complex PTSD.
Mhm.
So that's, and I can kind of explain it before I dive into how the diagnosis came
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
absolutely.
So and PTSD typically can be, I know we always think of, soldiers or people in the military coming out with PTSD. And it can be, from the horrors that they've experienced, and or sometimes medical staff will, just the living every day like that. But complex PTSD isn't sometimes from just one traumatic event or two. It's from prolonged experiences, typically childhood, where you're in a constant state of survival, and our bodies have a really hard time. It is you can shut it down, but our bodies have a really hard time with turning that switch off from being in just a normal kind of vibing state to being in the constant survival mode. It's something I still struggle with today, but luckily now I'm in a healthy place where I can recognize when I start feeling that, and for myself, that my counselor really helped me recognize. But complex PTSD is, it's different for everybody. It's hard. There's, as you mentioned, Tracy, there's triggers, but it really honestly affects our part of the brain that has a hard time with emotional regulation, has a hard time with relationships with others. Myself and some other individuals who have also gone through abuse as a child, we all agree that it's, sometimes we'll have moments of irritability where we can't explain. We're just really, really irritable, or we have a really hard time talking why we're maybe angry, or very modes of just extreme sadness and depression. Or I dissociate quite a bit. Those are all just experiences and symptoms of complex PTSD. Um, yeah.
So, and I may have missed this, Caitlin, and I apologize if I did. Around what age did you realize, or were you diagnosed that you had this complex PTSD?
Thank you. So actually, when I was a victim advocate at a nonprofit, um, I there was a situation, and I don't want to go too in depth, but there was a young woman that was explaining um, that she was a victim of very, very horrible domestic violence when she was younger, growing up. And it completely triggered in me. And I was able to talk with her and support her. But then I remember going to my director 2 hours after, and I was just completely shaking and just, um,
Mm.
and then I had to tell myself, like, it's fine. You're okay. You're okay. And then for about 2 days after that, I didn't even realize, but my husband told me after that he was trying to talk to me and just try to have like just normal everyday conversations, and I was completely dissociating. And he helped me recognize, like, that's not okay. That's not healthy. That we, especially as victim advocates, can experience residual trauma or vicarious trauma, and
Mm.
sometimes our own experiences will come out. And I think prior to work, prior to me going through counseling, I never went to counseling. I had talked with people from church, but it wasn't an actual counseling session that I realized that maybe I should see a counselor. And we were offered counseling as being advocates ourselves. So I did. I went to counseling, and let me tell you, it is exhausting. And I
Yes.
think that's something that I wish more people would talk about, because I think everyone says, oh, counseling, like I'm not going to do that. Because the first two sessions were really hard and I thought about quitting. Luckily, I'm in a very healthy marriage, and my husband said, hey, it's only two times. Keep it up. You already did two. So he really helped give me the strength and just helped encourage me to find the strength to keep going. And I'm so glad I did. Um, after explaining my story, um, I started remembering more things that actually happened that I forgot.
Mhm.
Um, and she also told me about glimmers. Um, so I don't know if you've heard about glimmers. A lot of people haven't.
I know what it is, but yes, explain to our listeners.
Yes. So we all talk about triggers, something that, it could be a song, it could be, someone cheering that maybe you think they're yelling at you. Unfortunately, I think most of us are familiar with triggers, but a glimmer is the complete opposite. So at the beginning, I mentioned my favorite color is green. The color green is a glimmer for me. So what glimmers are is just everyday kind of simple things that can pull you out of feeling just dissociation, or just feeling just blaming yourself, all things that come with PTSD. So a glimmer just helps you just kind of just realize that the small things are really important, and
You kind of
that
come back to reality, right?
yes,
And pull you
yes.
back in the positive.
Absolutely. They're beautiful. And green is mine. So anytime I see the color green, doesn't matter what color, can be trees, can be grass. There's green all around my home. And it just kind of pulls me back in. And sometimes too, like even right now, my little totodile, he's she's kind of a glimmer for me. Just something to kind of keep me going and on track. Um, and they're different for everybody, but my counselor really helped me focus on finding the glimmers in my life. So right now, my husband, my baby, those are all things that really just help me feel connected to myself and feel very good about myself. And I'm in a great place now, I think, to be able to recognize that. Um, she was the one to officially diagnose me with PTSD, or complex PTSD. It was huge. I had always thought that I had anxiety, but she said anxiety was because of my PTSD,
Mhm.
which was huge. So that was about 4 years ago. Um, and I always was under the assumption, I think a lot of us are, that um, I shouldn't have been diagnosed with PTSD because I didn't go to war. I didn't go through that. But in reality, I kind of did go through war. No
Yeah.
child should go through what I and my siblings did. Um, Especially growing up, your parents should be the ones that you feel most supported around. Your home should be a safe place. And coming home, and there was one instance, I won't go too far because I don't want to. It was pretty horrible, but I have even now something I struggle is I have to be perfect in everything. And one time I struggle with math, and one time I had an F on a math test, and um my dad had spanked me for every question that I got wrong. And it was um and I was in middle school. Um so probably 12, I think 12, 13. Um and I still think about that all the time. So sometimes I still think that, if I don't get perfect at work, or if I don't get something right away, that I'm going to have horrible consequences. So that's something that I still struggle with. And I talked to my counselor about that, and she was very helpful. But even now, I'm losing train of thought because I'm getting nervous.
It's okay. You're doing great. You're doing
You are
great.
Thank
Just,
you.
doing wonderful.
yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I think you're giving our listeners really good information. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't know
Like,
what CPTSD is
and I love the
versus,
distinction
yeah.
between anxiety and PTSD because I don't think a lot of people know the difference between.
Yes. Yes. And even I always thought I was an anxious person, but she helped me realize that a lot of my almost all of my anxieties were because I thought that I was going to face consequences, which I
Mhm.
did growing up. Um, and even now, I've been, to be honest, since going through counseling and since having my diagnosis, I do feel like I've been more of a roller coaster through my emotions, which is sounds strange, but I think it's very good and it's very healthy. It's me starting and keep going on my healing journey. And
Mhm.
when I was younger, prior to the diagnosis, I did dissociate a lot. Um, and it's really healthy for people to actually talk. And it even if you're admitting it to yourself, not all of us have, unfortunately, someone to talk to, um, which breaks my heart. But luckily, I'm in a very healthy relationship, which also helps me to feel more comfortable to be able to talk about my experiences, which is why I'm with you all today. But even I had to admit to myself, and I still do, that I have CP or complex PTSD, and that it's okay. That none of it is my fault. That it was just something that I went through as a child, and I've talked through my siblings too. And one of my siblings, I think, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to diagnose, but we've talked a lot, and they believe as well that maybe they should go to counseling and they might receive a similar diagnosis. But you know, I think that's something that I'm really proud of is just being able to talk to them about it too and be able to help them as well.
Navigate through it.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, and you had said when we did the pre-podcast, the interview, that you had actually confided in a friend before anything else. Can you elaborate on that
Yes. So,
a little bit for the viewers of, how scary that probably felt?
oh, absolutely. He probably doesn't even think of me, honestly, anymore. This friend, this is so long ago, but when I went to, there's this one church we went to, and there is a youth pastor there. He was so funny. I still remember some of the songs. Like he just is one of those people. I kind of remind me of like the Wiggles or oh, what's his name from Blue's Clues. The just a really infectious personality, and he was awesome, especially for a youth pastor. But I remember feeling really sad one day where I wasn't involved much with the service. Um, and normally I love to sing. I sing a lot. I hum, and I just wasn't that day. And I remember he kind of approached me after, and I just kind of word vomited everything to him. Um, and that was really the first time. And I remember saying, I remember being really scared after, and I felt extreme shame and guilt because I thought that I was going to get my parents in trouble. And I was really scared about my siblings being separated, um, which really kept me from saying anything in the beginning. And I think a lot of people, I've heard that a lot, that especially if they're the oldest, they don't report abuse because they're so scared that their siblings are going to be separated. Um,
Yeah.
which is really sad. But he was a big, really huge support. I remember him just listening the whole time. And like I said, that was so long ago. He probably doesn't think of me, but I think of him. And I hope he knows. In my heart of hearts, I think that hopefully he's feeling like a great twinge right now. Because I do think about him quite a bit.
It's interesting too. You mentioned obviously growing up in the church. I think in some ways that could complicate things, right? Like on the one hand, you're being taught God is loving
Mhm.
and husbands love their wives, that kind of thing. The messages are there of in how a Christian family should be, right? But your
Absolutely.
experience was so much different. Can you talk to that? Like what were you, if you don't mind, what were you experiencing at home and how did that get complicated with your faith?
Yeah, absolutely. My faith is still complicated. I am a huge faith believer now, but that was a very difficult journey. um, yeah, so I distinctly remember my siblings. I've talked with them, and they remember. well too. But so my father would be listening to Christian music 1 minute, and then the next minute he'd be yelling at us, just screaming at us. And um, I remember just thinking, how can a person who listens to Christian music, and he'd read the Bible quite a lot, and he would my father's very smart, very book smart, and I remember him reading quotes from the Bible, and then um, he'd hurt us in the next minute. And I remember thinking, how can someone who is a Christian, especially my father, be doing this? Like, is he truly saved? And there is a time where I got really angry at God, and I think a part of me feels guilt for that. And I feel guilt for a lot of things. I think that also comes from the complex PTSD. I feel guilt for almost everything. And um, sometimes I struggle with reading the Bible now, but especially growing up, it was hard. And I remember my dad quoting all the time that women have to be submissive to, wives should be submissive to their husbands. So that was drilled in my head. And my mom, I just remember my dad would, he's a really great manipulator. And he also went to school to be a police officer. So that kind of complicated things as well. Yeah. And he's such a smooth talker. I mean, anybody who would meet him think he would be the nicest person. Um, so there's times where I really thought things were happening in my head, that maybe I shouldn't be complaining this much, because this is what a Christian family looks like. We went to church every Sunday. Our church had like similar to like and not really a phone book, but we had pictures of everyone who went to church, and they talked about our family. And on paper, we looked like a really large family, but we looked like a happy family. And we did go from church to church quite a bit, but this one church with the youth pastor was the one we went to primarily. But it it was a struggle. I think too that my parents are divorced now, and I know I used to beg sometimes my mom to divorce my dad, and I used to get so angry when she wouldn't, or when she would mention that, as a Christian, that's not something you do. You stay with your partner no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And I remember having friends at school, and their parents were divorced, and it was a lot of complicated emotions, especially having so many siblings. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a frequent thing. My dad would listen to Christian music, and every Christmas, um, he'd we would have to read the story of Jesus's birth before we opened any gifts. Um, and it it is still hard. Um, it is still hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
You talked
No,
about
thank you for
so
sharing
oh,
that.
sorry. I think we have a delay. Tracy and I are both going at the same time.
Nope.
Sorry.
Yep. You go ahead, Bobby.
I'm sorry. Um, I'll ask and then Tracy, you go ahead. So you mentioned Kaylin, that your dad moved you to different churches. Do you know why that was, or can you speculate on why you think he did that?
I think because my dad is a really big manipulator, and I think that um, many individuals who go to church and churches feel very, they want to help people. And I think that our family, having a large family, I think that it was easier for us to get help. So, um, I remember quite a few Christmases we did get Christmas gifts from individuals who donated to church, which is wonderful. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten any. Um, and I think it was just also a way for him to keep abusing us without people finding out that he was abusing us.
I wondered about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it was even with that youth pastor, it wasn't the youth pastor, but he ended up talking to someone else, and it did come out that I did say something, and oh, did I get in trouble for that? Um,
Mm.
From your parents? Like that your parents found out you talked to the youth pastor?
yeah, it
Okay.
wasn't the youth pastor's fault, but he had gone up to the head pastor, and the head pastor had started a prayer chain and asked my parents if they could, and my dad had very nicely asked why, and he just said it was because I was a young girl and I was confused, which happened
Oh,
quite a
Yeah.
lot actually. Um, But something
Mm.
about abuse that, just switching my brain to the victim advocacy, is um, not saying it doesn't happen, because there are sometimes children who want to get back at their parents, but typically when children report abuse, it's over 90% that it is true.
Yeah.
So
I've heard similar stats. Yeah.
yeah, and it's especially sexual abuse. Fortunately for me, I didn't experience that, but a lot of physical abuse and emotional abuse. But it usually almost is caused by someone that the child knows. But yeah, switching churches to churches, we went to quite a lot. And I think too that it's just a way for him to get more help. And then I think when people would start asking questions, when they would start prying in a little bit, wanting to come over, something I didn't mention that I think is important too is there were 9 people in my family. So my parents and then 7 of us, all same mom and dad. We lived in a house that was under 1,000 square feet.
I
Wow.
remember you saying that.
Yeah.
Yep, that your living conditions weren't the best
Yep.
too.
In a
That's a small house.
small house, there was 2 bedrooms. My parents' room didn't have a door, which is wild to me being a mom, right?
No, you know what, Kaylin, the only door we had growing up was the bathroom door.
That's
Mm.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that was just back
I
then.
don't know, but yeah, but it is kind of crazy. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I've definitely unfortunately seen some of my siblings probably be created, but it's yeah, and I would sleep on a futon in the living room, and then my sisters slept on a mattress in the living room floor, and then I have 4 brothers. My one brother who's right below me would sleep on the top bunk, and then 3 boys would sleep on the bottom bunk.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I still sometimes have a little bit of bitterness that I'm trying to work through with some of my family members. Um, because I know a lot of my family would say that they wanted to help us out, but they didn't want to help my dad out. And
Oh
it just
wow.
still makes me angry in some ways that we were allowed to live like that. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that
Wow.
why we did switch churches is because when people would want to come over to bring us food or something that make him nervous.
Yeah.
Because obviously, yeah.
You
Yeah.
want people to see your living conditions,
Mhm.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. You know, circling back to something you said a few minutes ago about, your dad using the Bible, using verses about wives submitting to, should submit to their husbands and stuff like that. I know when we talked to you before, you mentioned the way your dad would always try to make things look like your mom was the problem. Can you speak to that a little bit? And I think you said too some of your younger siblings were a little bit more impressionable.
Yes. And I'm the oldest, like I said, but I'm also 13 years older than my youngest sibling. So I have a lot of memories, a lot, and I was involved as much as I could with my siblings. Um, whew, hug and toe dial, real tight. Um,
No, and if you're not comfortable answering any of these questions, it's okay to
Yes.
say, skip. It's okay, but hold that dinosaur really tight.
Thank you. No, I want to skip, but at the same time, I really want to get this out there because there's a lot of my dad's family too that have tried to connect with me, and they'll say, your mom manipulated you. And
Mm,
that makes me incredibly angry because one,
right.
the audacity to say that. And two, I know that he is their family, but I'm their family as well. And how and that's something too is I'm very protective of children. And I think just knowing that kids are going, even if you suspect it, you should always try to step in. Um, so my dad, he went to for police school and he did graduate. Um, he has that knowledge and he's very book smart. Um, and my mom actually came from abuse. I won't talk about her story because that's her story. And I didn't get permission from her. But my dad took that and very much kind of used it as a way to kind of blackmail her and backstab her as well. And at the time, growing up, my mom was very quiet, very mousy. There's times where I stepped in to get abused and try to take it off from my mom or my younger siblings. Um, and he So my dad, he's so smart. He would lie, but he'd also say parts of the truth. So there's times, and my dad spent, I don't even want to know, but my dad spent so much money on lottery tickets. So
Oh,
much money. I have my parents' money, so much money. I just remember going in his car, going in the house, and there were just piles and piles of lottery tickets. But he would say, and he would tell his family that my mom was stealing money from him. So my dad would pay would give money to my mom to donate to places because my dad likes to look good, and he would donate to the church quite a lot of money. And but yet he also wouldn't give my mom enough money for diapers and things like that. So sometimes my mom would take some of the money for diapers. Now I personally believe that, and he would tell people she was stealing money, but I don't
yet they were married. How do
exactly.
you steal money
Yeah,
from your
right.
Yes.
spouse?
And
Right.
I was with her when she went to the store. I saw what she bought. And it's not like she was buying clothes for herself, which again, nothing wrong with that. But it's not like she was spending it on, purses or whatever. She was buying diapers and wipes for her kids, which both of their kids, I should add, um, and just food for us. And he would tell people that she's stealing money. And there was times too, I remember at our grocery store where he would tell her to um, put in the lottery tickets to see. There's a machine that you used to put the lottery ticket in, and it would tell you. And sometimes she would tell him that he'd only win $2 or $4, and in reality he won 10. But she'd save that money and use it for us for school or something like that. So
Wow.
we were very poor growing up, but at the same time, it really hurt to see him spending money on lottery tickets, but only give her $100 for us for school. So he would tell people that she was stealing money, which I don't think she was, but he would tell little parts of the truth. He gave her money to do this and she used it for diapers. Or sometimes if there was a bill, he'd give her a little bit extra for that bill. And she would save that money for us for diapers or, for me for pads or whatever I needed, which I don't think is stealing, but he would tell his family that she was. And even when my mom started getting stronger, when I started getting older, um, we moved from a town to closer to my mom's parents, which was wonderful for us. And that's really where my mom started getting really
Hmm.
strong. And I'm so proud of her. But at that point, my mom was just so fed up after years and years of abuse from him that um, he, and of course, like us older siblings, so that would be me, my brother who's right below, and the third oldest. Um, we knew everything my dad was doing. We could see everything. But he would try hugging my mom in front of my younger siblings, and from their perspective, they would see her push him away,
Mm.
or they would see her say,
Okay.
"No, no, I don't want to hug him." So even my youngest brother, that's my youngest sibling, um, he said to me the other day actually that he's like, "Well, mom wasn't very physically warm to dad," and he gets really mad at her about that. And for me, I see it from a completely different lens.
Sure. Right. Because you know more of the whole story.
Yep. And even like my younger so my two younger brothers, they did go to live with my dad at one point. They blame my mom for a lot of stuff, and I think it is um my dad's fault that they do, but they don't um realize all the abuse. And I try to tell them and everything that I went through and we went through, but they just don't see it that way.
They were
Hmm.
too young, right, to even understand everything that
Yep.
was happening at that point.
Yep. And they think that too, that mom manipulated me and that I'm kind of making it up, which I've heard from a lot of other people that I've talked to, even as an advocate, that some family members, sometimes that is common, unfortunately, that they believe that people are making up abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, Kaylin, you obviously had a lot of major, milestones, things that happened as you were growing up. We were talking about your dad, talking about your youngest siblings' relationship with your dad. Where are you all at today in that, and what brought about where you're at currently?
Yeah. So I wanted to be no contact with my dad.
And for the viewers, can you explain what that mean? Like, what does that look like? Or what does it actually mean to be no contact with someone?
Absolutely.
And like, yeah. And I'm sorry. And like when did you decide to do that no contact as well? If that to kind of put that all in perspective for everyone.
Yeah. Well, no contact. It's similar to some contact, but no contact is completely just shut off from that person. So it can be blocking them on your phone from text messages or calls. It could be, from Facebook and all social media. Um, and it also for me, like I put a huge boundary on my dad's family, and I am still to this day very hesitant to connecting with a lot of my dad's family because one of my greatest fears is I'm in a very great place of having a huge boundary of not talking to my dad. But if I were to open up and connect with his aunt or my aunt, so my dad's sister, and then suddenly my dad would be there, even though they tell me
Mm,
he's not. That's something I'm afraid of. And
yeah.
I've told them that. I've expressed that. And I said, that's something flat out. If I see him there, I will not talk to you again. So no contact really is just shutting off all communication.
Okay.
Um, and it can be, you know, putting up very healthy boundaries. Boundaries are good.
Mhm.
Um, and a person who doesn't like a boundary is usually they're the ones who usually need a boundary against them.
Yes.
So
I have heard this. I
yes,
agree.
especially like my dad, if he was in a position of power. If a person was in a position of power, they're not going to like the boundary. Um, but yep, just cutting off all communication. Excuse me. It was complicated with my dad because I still wanted a relationship with my younger brother, my youngest brothers, and they were not yet 18. So when my
Okay.
parents divorced, um, I have two younger sisters, and then my brother was an adult. Well, and then the third oldest, he was an adult. So obviously, my dad had no, say over what they wanted. But my mom ended up getting primary custody of my two sisters, and then my dad of two of my brothers. Um,
Okay.
excuse me, and they were not yet 18 at the time. So that is the only reason why I did not block him from everything. Um, and I did keep his number just so I could see my younger siblings, because that was very important to me. But I did create very healthy boundaries. I would not text him, and he would try to talk to me. He would send me YouTube videos of Christian families and Christian music and being important to your like he even sent me something from the Ten Commandments of I think it's the Ten Commandments of thou shalt respect your parents or something like that. And I told him, I said, I will not talk to you unless it is about my brother. And that was it. And I hated that he had that little bit of power over me, but that was a decision for myself is being able to see my brother because that was important to me. Um, Even though we may not disagree, my brother and I, but we're still siblings, and um, everyone experiences things differently, and um, yeah. But now that my brother is over 18, um, no contact with my dad, completely no contact.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So very proud of that. I know he reached out to me through my aunt, which is his sister, and she told me how happy he was that I have a boy, which I'm very happy I have a child, but I feel like he's extra happy it's a boy because of the whole male, you know, which is, um, but
I know
yeah,
what you mean. I think we all, yeah, the male dominance
Kind of the
thing.
patriarchal
yep.
Yes.
mindset. Yeah.
Yep.
And just that she kind of hinted to me that, Kaylin, that is his grandson, that is your child's grandpa. And I'm very proud of myself because I told her, I said, that's great and all, but my son, I'm not his only parent. My husband also has a right in this too. And I've told my husband what I've gone through. And my husband said, absolutely not. So, I'm not the only one who makes decisions about who our child sees and who they don't. And I put my dad's name in my child's baby book because that's if one day my child decides to have a relationship with my dad, that's for him to decide. I'll tell
Hmm.
him if he has questions. His stepdad isn't his biological grandfather, but his stepdad is his grandpa in all the other ways, important ways. because family isn't just from blood, it's from who you choose. Um, but and I want to be honest with my son, but um, yeah, absolutely no contact with my dad, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. What about like, are any of your other siblings no contact as well? Not, as you're all older.
Yeah, the three oldest are,
Okay. Oh,
and then
wow.
Okay.
yeah, the four youngest are not. And my the four youngest, my one sister, she is a very believer, faith follower. She's very going to church, and that is very important to her. And she's tried to convince me at first. And she's 21, so she's younger, but she's tried to convince me to have a relationship with him. And she's told me, that's still your dad. And I told her that, there's so many things that he did that, um, may I forgive him one day? Sure. But that's for me to decide. And that's not for her to, let me try to see him. And I'm in a very good place. I'm very proud of myself, and I don't want to open up. Um, and
You're
I,
not ready, and that's okay. And
yeah,
you may never be.
yeah,
Yeah,
And that's, again,
absolutely.
like you said, that's a decision for you to make and not someone to force that. Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. I mean, we're
absolutely.
so proud of you. You've had a long journey
Thank you.
and yeah.
Thank you.
I agree. I am just so like it just makes my heart happy to hear you talking about boundaries. Do you think was that something that you learned in counseling? Just out of curiosity, I always think about counseling and how, I too have been to she's a great counselor, and boundaries were something we really worked hard on. Was that something you learned there, do you feel like, or?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And boundaries are still really hard for me in certain situations. Because I do feel like I'm a people pleaser. In certain situations, boundaries are so dang hard. But my counselor really, and I even have boundaries with my mom. And my mom, sometimes I feel like I'm more of her mom than she is mine, and we have a unique relationship. But my counselor really helped me navigate through that. And boundaries are good. Boundaries are healthy, and I think sometimes, like, I used to think boundaries as like, oh, that person's being a jerk or they're being rude, or in reality, no, no. We are each living our own lives, and it's only up to us to decide what we do in our life and who we talk to and um, how we go through our life. And boundaries really can help keep yourself safe and keep others safe. And especially being a mom now, I'm very proud that I've worked through those boundaries. But counseling, it was a lot of work, and especially being an advocate, a previous advocate, and I should say still advocate. I still want to advocate for individuals who've gone through similar experiences, but it's definitely something that counseling really, really, really helped.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I agree, like boundaries, there's healthy boundaries to protect
Yep.
yourself, right? And I'm so glad that you bring that up and you've touched base on that multiple times throughout this interview because like you said, people have this negative concept of what boundaries are, and they're not. We need to heal and we need to do the right
Mhm.
way. And I just sent Tracy a video this morning. It was kind of like that about boundaries and,
Yeah.
what you let people do to you and, having that healthy boundary. But anyway, so I guess I wanted to ask, um, so you went through the emotional abuse. You didn't have the physical abuse, but you had the mental abuse, the emotional abuse. And there's probably a lot of people that when they watch this, are gonna be like, oh my gosh, like that, like I went through that as well. What advice do you have for them?
I did go through a lot of physical abuse as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I should touch base, and I don't know how deep I want to go, but just a little bit of the physical abuse. So I do not believe in spankings. I and I told I and that's one boundary I'm very proud of, with my family and anyone who watches my child. No spankings, because um, so one this happened quite a bit, but we were to do something. I remember one time. So we were in our backyard in our basement window, and we were just throwing the football around, and then my brother, the third oldest, it was completely an accident, but he threw the ball through the window and it broke, and we knew my dad was going to be really upset, and he was. So he did beat. Well, my next brother and I, the second oldest, and I took the fall for it, and the third oldest, I remember him crying because he knew we were going to take the fall for it. So my dad did beat my brother and I quite a bit um, for that. Um,
Could you ever, like, was it just with his hands? And again, I know you don't want to go too deep, or where, was it to the point where he used other objects or?
Typically his hands, but then a lot of times he'd shove us into things. There was one time, I don't even remember what my brother did. But one time when we were younger, my brother did something mouthed off to him or something, and he made my brother kneel. And he spanked him so hard that he had welts on his butt, and he missed
Oh
that whole
my
week of school.
gosh.
And my
Oh
mom
my gosh.
and I think school suspected something, but it was really bad. It was really bad. And he spanked, and my dad was very strong. He was extremely strong. And for some odd reason, maybe I don't know if it's because of my siblings. Apparently, I didn't care about my own safety. um, which now, definitely now, I'm a lot more of like, my health matters, my body matters too, which is a new boundary for me. But at that time, I remember just jumping on my dad sometimes and trying to just hit him. I just pound on his back, and and then he'd turn to me, but I just much rather have him hurt me than other people. Um, but yeah, he would spank us a lot, and he'd push us in to things. I remember um, when my mom had my youngest sibling. So we had basement that had stairs, and my mom and my dad were fighting, and my mom was holding my brother, who was probably about 6 months old at the time. So I would have been 13 and a half. My dad pushed her and she started falling down the stairs. And my mom got extremely hurt because she was holding my baby brother. So my brother didn't get hurt, but my mom got hurt really bad. And I remember her talking to people and at school and everything. And my mom she told them she fell down the stairs, but um, she didn't tell them the whole story. And
Wow.
so typically my dad would use his hands, but he would push us into things all the time, or he'd something that I'm extremely claustrophobic, and I blame it on my dad because if when I started really mouthing off to him, which I'm so proud of myself. I don't um I'm not that way to anybody else. I try really hard not to, but with him he got me so fired up. There was, I think, probably about age 10 really, really is when I started really being angry at him and yelling at him a lot, just giving it back to him as much as I could. But
Hmm.
where if we'd mouth off, he'd completely like put his body over us. And he said that he had to try to defeat our will. He had to try to like break the power that he was in charge, that he had to destroy our will. So
Wow.
there's times where I would just, at first, he'd do that to me and I'd panic and I'd fight. But then there's times where, and I forgot that he did that counseling. I remembered it through counseling, but um, after I don't want to say smart enough, but I just would just lay there and eventually he just let me go. But he'd do that to my younger siblings as well. Um,
Isn't that
A power
interesting?
grab, like, yeah,
mhm.
power
Yeah.
control.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I have a Christian background as well, Kaylin, and I know a lot of popular Christian authors, right, who teach parenting classes or have books or whatever. They teach that about
Mhm.
breaking the child's will. And so I can't help but wonder if your dad was influenced and then also used that as, you know, taking advantage of that teaching to.
Right.
Absolutely. I know my dad, and I do feel bad for him in a way because I know that his father, my grandpa, was very abusive to him as well. And I remember hearing from other members of my dad's family that similar things were done to my dad. But like, and I, prior to being a mom, I felt very bad for him because I kind of understood because it is really hard when you go through abuse to not not keep that cycle going. But now that I'm a mom, like there's no way. Like if I start to realize that I'm doing things, or maybe I'm starting to get in a way where I'm very irritable and I'm feeling this come up, I want to try to squash that as soon as possible, because I don't want to do that to my husband or my son. I don't want to keep that cycle going. But it is hard to get out, and I can understand where I don't agree with it, but I can see where my dad is coming from doing that to us, because that's what he grew up with.
Yeah. Yeah. You do, you kind of I get that too, right? And it's like you do want to in some ways have sympathy for them, but at the same time, you know it's a choice. At the end of the day, it's a choice. You can
Right.
either do what was done to you and like you said, continue the cycle, or you can say, no, the buck stops here.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing this. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's too, I think that's why, and this is maybe advice too I might like to give, um, is it's really hard when you talk to other family members. And I'm not trying to prevent people from talking to family about abuse, but especially my dad's family, when I would mention little tidbits or just talk about it. And obviously, he's their family, even though I am as well, are my siblings, they would defend him. And I think it's because they grew up similarly. So they thought it was okay. And I think that, for me, going to counseling and even being in my relationship that I am with my husband really helped support me, and I realized that that's not okay, that that's not a healthy way to grow up. And I just want people to talk to someone. It doesn't have to be your family, it doesn't have to be, um, it can be anyone that you feel comfortable. Even research, even if you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, just um, listen to this podcast or listen to anything, and just realize that sometimes, we're all humans and we all experience things differently. And especially back then, a lot of my family is very traditional, my dad's family, and you just didn't talk about this stuff. It's very taboo. And I think sometimes when you talk to family members, that they come from that mindset, and you internalize that it's okay, that what you're going through is just life. It's especially having a Christian background. Um, and now I'm at a point where I realize that that's not what faith is about, at all. And that's not what God or Jesus teach at all. Um, but I think just have someone you feel comfortable, and just realize that it isn't okay to go through that. But
You bring
Yeah.
up a good point. Very, to have someone that you can talk to, whether it's a psychiatrist or a good
mhm,
friend or who, someone that you can confide in,
yeah,
that can be honest with you and say, this isn't right, or, what you're experiencing is not right, and to stand up for yourself.
right, absolutely. And to realize too that it's so easy to, like, I blame myself even now pretty much for everything. And it's for the simplest things. Like, the other day I said something to someone at work, and the whole entire next day I was like, "Oh my goodness, what I said was awful." And it really wasn't awful. And I talked to them, and they were like, "What? I don't even remember you saying that." And it's just realize that what happened to you in life isn't your fault. Um
Yeah.
That goes back to that people
and
pleaser thing you were talking about, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
You, and if, especially if you are a survivor of abuse, it's not your fault. You're never at
Yeah.
fault. Even if
100%.
even if they try to. And before I had no contact with my dad, I think and he's very narcissistic as well. But I think, would start realizing that I was going to be no contact, because I made that very obvious. And even before everything with my brothers, but he would say, yeah, maybe I've done some stuff, but you have too. Neither of us are innocent. And that is not an apology. And that's
No,
No.
not,
No.
no,
no,
no.
No,
no. That's just a
exactly.
way for a narcissist to throw it back on you and make you feel guilty. So,
Yep.
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
So, Kaylin, if you could pull all of this together, what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned? And you've kind of said, you want people to know one thing you wanted them to know was to confide in somebody. So, if we can kind of bring things to a close what would you say is one of your biggest lessons you've learned, and what would you like to tell everyone?
I think that, we hear about um, self-care a lot and recently, and which is awesome. I love that. And I think, taking care of yourself, advocating for yourself, but I think really just treat yourself with grace and kindness. If something that I've heard is that, if you can make someone smile today, that's awesome. But it's like, or if you can make one person smile, but realize that you yourself are a person. So if you can make yourself smile, you made one person smile. And I know that's cheesy, but it's so true. And just realizing that healing is a journey. It's not just a straight path. It's looks different for everybody, and it's going to be different every day. So after this podcast, I might be shaking and I might hold my baby really tight, but it is part of my healing journey. And um,
Absolutely.
you don't, just that healing really looks different for everybody, and just keep doing it. And just because you have a really bad day one day doesn't mean that you're failing on your journey. It just could be that, you've feeling triggers, or you're just really tired that day, but just don't let the abuser win.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. It's kind of like we talk about with and Reiki is holding space for people, and we have to learn to hold space for ourselves and be kind to
Mhm.
ourselves.
Yes.
And we talk about the Reiki principles and like just for today, and what you've done today, Kaylin.
Mm.
I think Tracy agrees. Like, wow, you have just really you've given a lot of yourself today to share your story to for everyone to see and give people encouragement and hope and how far you've come. And we're so proud of you.
Thank you. I've realized.
Oh, yeah.
Oops, sorry. No, I one last thing. Because now I'm just like feeling like this. I'll probably sleep for like 5 hours after this. But um, the biggest thing I'm proud of is I've realized that we're human and we need to feel emotion, and I've held off emotions for so long,
Yeah.
and now it's exhausting. And a lot of people are scared to go to counseling because they start feeling those emotions and they don't want to. But you really need to get them out. Otherwise, one day they will, and it'll come out in a way that is not healthy.
Yes.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
I piggyback off that one? I love that you brought that up, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when I started counseling, or when I was considering starting counseling, one of the things that I was most scared of was I said, what if I start letting it out and I
Mhm.
come completely undone? What if I
Mhm.
completely unravel? Like it was a real fear for me. I thought literally it was just gonna, like, it was like a ball of yarn. Once you start, it was just gonna
Mhm.
completely, like, I was gonna fall apart. I really was afraid of that. But my counselor wisely told me, she said, Tracy, your body knows. You will process the right amount at the right time,
Yep.
and it will stop there. And you'll process those emotions and you'll let go. Then you'll move on. She said it will never be all at once. And I was like, she said, trust the process. And you know what you just said, it's so true. Like, people are afraid of their emotions. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up.
You're right.
Yes.
Like
Thank
you
you for sharing
trust,
that too.
yeah, like trust the process. Tracy, it's a great point because and just like Kaylin, you referred to like if you don't trust the process and you don't do that, it is all going to come out in the wrong way at the wrong
Mhm.
time to the wrong person or whatever. And that's the bad consequences of it. So yeah, there's nothing, counseling is like the most healthiest thing you can do when you're
Mhm.
going through something, a situation like you've been through, or Tracy or me or whatever. Like there's nothing wrong with counseling to get those emotions out in a healthy way and deal with them.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Tracy. I think we have
No,
a
I
delay.
didn't have anything more.
I know
I
I have
didn't know if you
goosebumps.
ladies had anything else, any final thoughts here. This has been such a beautiful way to spend this afternoon. I thank
Yes.
you so much, Kaylin. I've been kind of wiping tears away because it's just very touching to
It's
me, and to
very, yeah,
see your healing is just so awesome.
Thank you
yeah.
so much. Um, I know I'm really proud and I'm deeply honored that both of you have asked me to come on. And I just, I think growing up in abuse, it's hard and it's every day. I sometimes see myself still struggling, but and that's okay too, and I'm just proud that I can admit that. And I think what you both doing is beautiful, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and others. And I think all of us are. I love what your podcast is about, and life is crazy sometimes, but I think in good ways and bad ways. And I'm just really appreciative that both of you are taking time to talk to people, and I think that's so beautiful.
Think,
Thank you.
healing is not a one and done, right? We're
Mhm.
healing our whole lives and
Mhm.
we're learning how to cope. And as long as we keep moving forward, and it's we thank you for being courageous enough to share your story today because your story is going to help others go, oh my God, I'm experiencing that and I have hope now. And,
Mhm.
they
Yes.
may have questions. So we're blessed. We are so blessed that you agreed to come on and share your story today.
Thank you. And I think I did also because I feel safe with both of you, and I think that's really important. Is both your energy and your just who you are as people,
Uh,
and it's important for people to feel safe.
It is, yes,
absolutely.
creating that
Yes.
safe space, right? So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
all right. So we're gonna say goodbye. We're gonna stop the recording here in a couple minutes and just say goodbye to Kaylin. And thank you again for coming on today, sharing your story. I'm glad that you felt that this was a safe place. And Tracy, you want to have any last words there?
Yeah, I just want to thank our listeners too for being with us and listening to Kaylin's story today. And we will have some links below in below the video. And Bobby and I always are available too if you want to reach out or if you want to share your story of healing that you have that you think would be a blessing to others as well. So please reach out. And again, those links will be below.
Right. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.
Cloud.
Oh,
Here we go.
hi. Welcome to
Hey, can this be part of the bloopers? I love it.
Yes, I love this.
Terrible.
I didn't do
I'm
the bloopers
terrible.
last time, so this is going to be bloopers this time. So, welcome to Hell and Back.
Right? Oh my
Go
gosh.
ahead, Tracy.
Okay. Welcome to, I think it's because it's like two. It's like this.
Choo choo choo
What,
hell.
You gotta laugh at yourself.
that's that's what threw me off. Okay. All right. I'm gonna get serious now.
I get it. Yeah, welcome to oh, I get what you're saying. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, well, this is all
Yes.
recording, so this will be great bloopers, by the way.
Yes, I agree.
All right, here we go. Ready? One, two, three, go.
Thank you for joining us on To Hell and Back podcast today. Ordinary people trans. Oh my gosh. Thank
Honestly,
You know what? I'm gonna do it.
you. Bobby, I'm terrible. I
No,
would
you're not.
not
You're
make it as an
awesome.
actress. I'm
So,
just
no.
saying.
yeah, I can't wait to play this back. So, all right,
Oh gosh.
here we
Okay.
go. So, one, two, three. So, welcome to the To Hell and Back podcast. Ordinary people living in. See, I can't even do it. You know what? Kaylin, we just did this last week and we did really good. Um,
Believe it or not, she's not going to believe us.
I know. All right, here we go. One, two, three. Okay. So welcome to the Helleback podcast. Ordinary people, extraordinary people living ordinary. Wait, oh my God. I screwed it up again. Isn't it extraordinary people?
No, it's
But our
ordinary
title
people
is way
living
too long
ordinary people living transformed
for
lives.
lives. All right, here we go. This is going to be so fun when we play it back.